All right, all right, all right. I am here Facebook living on with my new background right here. Hope everybody is having a good day today. I am learning how to use this thing, so hopefully you guys can see and hear me okay. Just going to wait maybe a minute to see if I can get some people to come and join in on this webinar. Let me invite some friends. Let's see here. I'm going to invite a couple people, see what's up. I hope everybody is doing okay out there. Yep. Let's see. Let's get some people invited. We're going to begin in just a minute. I also want to take a moment to thank all of our people who have joined in our BMWOC group. Want to encourage you to please be interactive in this group and to share business tips and practices. This is the reason why we have this group, is so that we can learn from each other and do webinars such as this, so that we can learn how to improve our business, not just sell all the time. So while we can have ads out there and things like that, please engage with the group. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this thing here, on this this thing. I'm also going to share. I believe I should be able to share this video. All right, hello there, who's there? Let me know who's out there in the world. Let me know who's out there. Hey there, lady. How you doing? I see you joining. That's great. And just going to keep on going. I'm pretty sure we're going to have some folks going to jump on it. Hey, Judith. How you doing? Hopefully people come out here and show me some love. Show me some love. And if you have any questions about any of the stuff that I'm going to present in this webinar, please put it in the chat window. I will be able to see it and answer your questions either now or after the webinar is over. So we're going to get right into it because I got a whole lot to cover, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular webinar is because by default, I'm a career strategist. Hey, and thank you for the love. I'm a career strategist, and what I try to do is teach people some of the strategies that I've learned in terms of interviewing. And so I have carried that skill into my podcast world, and for the last couple of years I have gained so much knowledge from everybody, and I also gained a lot of knowledge on what to do, what not to do, what people want to hear, what they don't want to hear in terms of podcast interviewing. And so the podcast interviewing is really just another technique of your interviewing skills, of being able to talk about what it is that you do, why you do what you do in the most concise manner, so that people immediately get the gist of what you do without adding a whole bunch of extra stuff in there to try to dress it up. So in these 10 tips, it's actually going to be mixed into about 4 or 5 categories that I'm going to be talking about today, from before you do the podcast, to sending in your information, to actually what you do in the podcast interview, how you talk about your business, and then what you do after the podcast. And so I'm going to be covering some do's. So for everyone that I have a don't, I'm going to have a do. Okay, because we got to have don't do, and then we got to have what to do. So we're going to get started right there. So we're going to talk about what to do before you join a podcast, and this is as similar as what to do in terms of a job or business. So just look at it that way. This is for career or business. It's all the same. Okay. Number 1, do not apply for a podcast that does not align with your business. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Do not apply for a podcast that does not align with your business. Now, there are tons, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, right? Just like any other job or any other interview, you have to do the research on what podcasts best represent your company. So with mine specifically, okay, because mine is about professions, it aligns with so many people, right? But if you are a speaker and you are a Pacific speaker or you are a Pacific author, you want to align that podcast you want to align your interview with the company, the podcast company that promotes what you do, that has the target audience that you are looking for. Because there's no sense in interviewing for miscellaneous podcasts if people are not interested in really what you do. Okay, because the bottom line is, when you do your interview, the listeners is what you are trying to attract. The host is just a facilitator to help you bring your message out to the listeners. So if you really look at it, the bottom line of what you're trying to do is reach new clients. And the best way to reach new clients is to, first of all, make sure, this is the do now, make sure that you research the right company and don't take every opportunity to get on any kind of podcast platform. Hey, Connie, how you doing? You want to make sure that the platform that you are choosing to be on aligns with your business strategy, so that the listeners who are tied to that business strategy hear what you have to say. And it will make a tremendous difference, because again, you never know who's listening. You never know who is your next opportunity. You never know what your next business jump is going to be. You never know. You just really never know. And you want to make sure that every time you get on a podcast, that you align yourself with those organizations that's going to pull your company forward. So while there might be lots of podcast platforms and people say, hey, I want you on my podcast, find out who they are, who are their listeners, who are their targets, what is the purpose? Are you getting something out of it? Is the podcast host teaching you something? So we're going to talk about that too. So that is number one. Make sure that you align yourself with the company that aligns with your business. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, here's another don't treat an interview as if it's not important. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you right now, yes, it's an interview. You're probably calling on the phone or you're meeting someone in person, just like any job, business, or whatever. That podcast person or whoever it is, that's their business. That's their bread and butter. That's by promoting you, they're also promoting themselves as a podcast platform that is, promoting other organizations. That's why they do interviews. So when you have a podcast and you're not treating it like it's important, meaning that you don't take it seriously, you don't show up on time, you don't ask the questions, you don't facilitate. I get a lot of that too. Okay, I've heard from other podcasters about how sometimes they're not treated as a real business. We are a real business, just like any other business. Okay, we go through the motions, we set up all this stuff, we get the website going for you, we do all this stuff because it is our business, just like it's your business. So please, don't do that. First of all, you give a bad impression. That's the first thing. First impressions is everything. Think about it like this, y'all. When you come across a podcast platform, a host of someone who interviews a lot of people, think about how many connections that person has, right? So that person may have 500 connections and you're on their platform, which means that their connections is hearing your platform, and then their connections is hearing your interview, and then their connection. So it's like a domino effect. So every time that you are on a podcast platform, your interview is being heard hundreds of times. Okay. And then the host has their own network connection, which they have already interviewed, right? You never know. You might be able to get a introduction to someone who could take your business to the next level. So you have to treat that interview as if it is the most important thing in your life. Okay. Oh, hey, Katina. Yeah, as a follow podcast, I agree. I'm going to tell you, it is no different than you showing up for a job interview and you taking it like a joke. The person is just not going to hire you if you showing up, you snickering, you giggling, you like, oh, I'll get back to you. If somebody on a podcast platform and they align with your business and they're going to help you take it to the next level, treat it very, very seriously because you just never know. You never know who's going to do it. Okay. So that is what I think you guys need to do before you join any podcast. Okay. Those are the do's and don'ts. So I'm going to move on to the next one. And if anybody, like I said, if anybody got questions, please drop it down because I can see it right here. Chris Jordan said, truth. Yes, yes. It's definitely the truth. I'm telling you. I'm not fussing y'all. I'm just telling you that this is some real stuff here. Okay. All right, documentation submission. Number one, do not skip reading the instructions on what is required. Okay. Now, if the podcast person asks for some information, it may seem like an inconvenience to you guys. But here's the thing. If the person is going to put you on their website, your photo, your links, whatever, give them what they asked for. Don't half do it. I'm going to tell you, the worst thing you could do is make the time worse of doing all this extra work. If you have to make me do more work just to get your stuff up there, I'm going to get annoyed. Okay? Because there's a reason why they put that information in the application. If they're asking you, what did Chris say? She ain't mad at us. She's just being real. Yes, I'm being real. Look, if I ask you to send me full links of your social media links, so if I ask you to send me a high resolution photo, please send that to me. Please send that to the person who's asking for it. Please send that. It's not going to take you but a minute to go up to your Facebook link and copy the URL. Don't, give the host what they're asking for. Here's the reason why you want to do that. First of all, again, thinking about this, just because they're podcast hosts don't mean that's all they do. What if they have access to like Essence Magazine? What if they have access to someone else's podcast on their website and people from that website comes to their website and see your stuff? If you don't give them what they asked for, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to put it up there and you're going to lose out. You're going to lose out because most podcasters do not go the extent of really promoting you like that. They really don't. They just ask for your photo and then they do a little blur about you and that's it. So if you get somebody who is asking you for your photo, your social media links, for all your stuff, guess what you need to do? You need to send it in and not be playing around, right? Now, if you're not sure, ask the questions. That's a do. If you're not sure what's required, like the specification for your photo or whatever you need, pick up the phone, send an email, get on Facebook, connect with that person, especially if they on social media a lot, connect with that person and say, hey, listen, I just want to be sure this is what you want. And then you make sure you have the right email address, everything. Because I can't tell you, in the 3 years that I've been doing podcasting, I don't understand what the problem is when it's clearly written in the instructions. And then I get people that don't send me the information. And then I'm feeling like I got to go chasing after you to get it, right? I'm not going to do that. Okay. So, and a lot of podcasters don't even ask for that kind of information. But there are new podcasters coming out and they are promoting people on a regular basis. So when you have those ones that's a little weird, just ask the question. It doesn't hurt anything. It actually shows that you have a deep interest in that company. The last thing you want to do is waste somebody's time, money, and energy, right? Now, let's move on to the next one. That's all I'm going to say about that. I just kind of say amen. Amen to that. Okay. Now, when it comes to your biographical sketch, okay, you don't want to give a bio that's too short. If you give a bio that's like 3 sentences, make sure you only giving it when it's requested. Because a lot of times what happens is if you don't ask the organizer a question about how big the bio is, generally what happens is people will send like a really short bio. Now, there's nothing wrong with a short bio. I think it's good in certain cases. But if you want to do a short bio, right, you want to have something that has a balance between you and your business, because a short bio is generally about 3 sentences, about 3 or 4 sentences, right? But in that 3 or 4 sentences, right? Good evening, Dee. How you doing? In those 3 or 4 sentences, what can you really get in that bio about you and your business? Because remember, you're doing a podcast for your business, and talk about your expertise. So in that bio that is about 3 or 4 sentences, you got to really be very, very concise about who you are and what your business does. And that's pretty much all you're going to give. So what I recommend as to do is that you have a bio that's about 350 to 450 words. Now, that is a really good chunk of words right there, 350 to 450. Now, let me tell you what that'll do. First of all, it will give you room to really talk about your specific background. And I'm not talking about adding all these titles, which I'm going to talk about that because I think people are just gone crazy with the titles and the pronouns in their descriptions. But what I'm talking about is giving good substance about your specific expertise that really speaks to who you are, why you created the business, and what the business does. From that point, the host can literally go in and take any part of your bio that has some really good information in it, and they can say, okay, I think I want just this piece, or I might use the whole thing. Okay. And that just really shows the listener or the reader who's looking at your bio, man, this person really has some expertise. Now I'm going to tell you what you don't do. And I've seen this a lot. When you do your bio, this is not the time for you to put in personal stories. Okay. Personal stories are good if you are sending a bio that is aligned with something that requires you to put in a personal story. And I'll give you an example. Okay. There have been bios out there where someone would say, and I'm going to use myself. Hi, my name is Ann Austin. I'm a career strategist, this and that and the other. My background is in this. And then they go into, as a child, I grew up in South Central California where I was this and this and that and the other. And my parents was this and that and the other. Okay, look, let me tell you something. This is not the time for that. It's not the time for that. If you are or have researched the company as people joining in, and I talked about number one is making sure you align your business with the podcast platform. That means you're aligning your speech or your presentation to the theme of that podcast. So if that podcast is talking about business, guess what? You need to be talking about business and how you got in business. If they're talking about empowerment, then you can pick one specific piece of your life that is empowering and incorporate that in your bio. If they're talking about writing a book, you need to talk about a piece of your expertise and a piece of your business that aligns with why you wrote the book. You see what I'm saying? You can't just go out there and just talking about these real deep personal stories and it doesn't align with, what you're trying to do. So you got to have multiple bios out there. You got to have bios for each one of those areas that you are targeting. Because remember, again, we're talking about the listeners. The listeners is who you are attracting, right? So somebody type down in there, I'm attracting listeners. Okay. That is what you want. You want to attract who is listening to you. So type that down in there to let me know you listening to me right now. Okay. What did Chris say? Be aware of your audience. Same speaking principle. Great point. Yes. So, hey, Cedric, how you doing? So you want to do that. Okay. So make sure your bio is 350 to 450 words. Make sure you have good substance in there without going in there. And that brings me to my last one. Now we're going to talk about these titles, okay? You want to have a well-written and balanced bio, and you want it well-written because I'm going to tell you, I got some bios that are not even proofread. There you go. They're not even proofread. they don't have a balance between you and your business. Okay. Now, here's the first thing. Number one, to having a well-balanced business bio for your business on a podcast or any interview, don't matter where you go. First of all, pick no more than 2 titles. Okay. You guys seen it. This is when they go, my name is Ann Austin. I'm a career strategist, speaker, certified life coach, strategist, empowerment person, actor, blah, blah, blah. And then they get to who they are founder of. Okay, you could be all those things. Those are things that you could talk about in your interview. It does not need to be spelled out like that in your bio, because we all know that you are certified. Okay, somebody dropped off because I guess they didn't like what I said. So it is okay, because here's the thing. When the host has to read your bio. Think about that. They're on the podcast. They're trying to read your bio. The person is trying to read your resume. Let's say you had this on a resume. Let's say you had this on a piece of paper and someone was introducing you on stage. Okay, the best way to get introduced is to pick no more than 2 titles. So if you are an author, be a speaker and an author. If you are a certified life coach, be a certified life coach and whatever else. But you don't need to have like speaker, life coach, strategist, empowerment person, actor, this, that, and the other, and this, and this, and this. You don't need to have all of that, because basically when you do your interview, this is when you talk about who you are, what you do, what your business provides. As part of that services, you do these services, because and I see this in resumes all the time. They have business acumen skills up here when it's really a job task, or vice versa. So you got to learn how to kind of like pull back, because if you look at the people who are like high-powered certified life coaches, they don't have more than 2 titles. They don't have like 6 or 7 titles out there. They don't. They only have maybe 1 or 2, because they want to make it so easy for anyone to introduce them, whether they're on stage or whether they're at a church or whether they're on the radio. No host is going to sit there and try to say all those names. They're just not going to do that. Okay. So people can probably get mad at me because I said that, but I'm just telling you, it's the truth. We are so ingrained of having all of these titles. It's to the point now that I'm about to take some of these off. I even have a couple. I think I have too many, even on my LinkedIn account, because I have career strategist, author, speaker, mentor, and all that. It's getting too much. I think it's just too much. It's too confusing. And I think that people just really want to know what you do. Okay. So I think that if we just kind of pull it back and get out of that mentality of having all these titles and just really speaking on that, I think that we will be better off. And I know for me, number one, when I get off here, is that I'm going to take some of that stuff off of mine because I looked at that today and it was just too much. Okay. So that is that section there. Now, we're going to talk about attending the podcast, okay, for your business, okay? Okay, Katrina said interested. Connie's laughing. Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of titles out there. Okay. When you attend the podcast or any interview or anything, make sure you be mindful and respectful of the time. When you have your podcast interview, you are set to have a specific time to talk about what you want to do. That means that the moment that you get on the podcast platform, you have X amount of minutes to get in your information. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of that. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you are on time. Do not be late. When you are late, you are eating in your time. These are precious minutes, seconds that you have to say what you want to say to the listeners. Because remember what we said earlier, I am attracting listeners. So if the listeners are on time, you need to be on time, ready to go, knowing what to say. right? So you want to make sure that you be on time. The first do you want to do is connect a few minutes early and establish a relationship with the host. Now, what that's going to do for you is that is going to be your starting point to developing a relationship with the person who is having you on their platform. Okay, that this is 5 minutes. That 5 minutes is a long time, guys, to introduce yourself, but do not sell to them. Okay, don't sell to them. Just introduce yourself, establish a relationship with them, have a quick conversation, maybe introduce or maybe offer another time to talk where they don't feel pressured or rushed or trying to think about what you're doing, because their mind is on ready to get you on air. Okay, to get you heard. So what you want to do is connect a few minutes early. If the host is there, spend that few minutes talking to him and her about, what they do, letting them know you're grateful for being on the podcast and that you would like to entertain a call at a different day or time to talk about how you can bring value to that host. Okay. And again, we're going to talk about this a lot, about bringing value to the podcast listeners. Okay. So that's really what you want, because that's how you're going to get your listeners through value. Okay. So that's what you want to do. This is not a time for you to try to sell what you know and all that kind of stuff, because when you do that, the ears are going to shut off and nobody's going to hear that, and you'll lose your first impression for sure. Chris said, boom. Okay, now, here is the most important part of this whole thing, okay? When you start your interview, okay, and I want you guys to hear me really, really carefully on this one. Do not be in a rush to tell everything about your business in the first sentence, in the first question, when they go, tell me about yourself. Okay, people are so in a rush. I just got to get all my business in the first question, because if I don't get my business in, I'm afraid people are not going to hear what I'm saying. I'm going to tell you that could be further from the truth. What is going to get people to hear your podcast interview throughout the whole entire time is your expertise, period. Your expertise. Because listen, they already know you're in business. That's why they joined your podcast. They already know that you do a certain service, because once they realize what the name of your company is, they can easily go online and check out your website and see what you do. They already know that. Your listeners know this. The host knows this. What they don't know is what you know, right? So I'm going to repeat that. So what they don't know is, you said slow down. Okay, slow down. Okay, look. You need to make sure that you do not rush your opportunity to talk about what you know, okay? Now, with that said, when they give you the question, tell me about yourself, or tell me about your business, you want to give elaborated points, meaning you want to pick one or two pieces of your services to focus on. Because let's say you have 5 or 6 services that you do in your business. You only have 35, 40 minutes at best to talk about that. Just pick 2 strongest pieces of your business and then focus on that. When they ask you about yourself, don't go all the way back to your grandmama and all that kind of stuff. Talk about what excited you in what you did. What school did you go to get the skills? Who did you help? How was it of value to someone else, right? How many people have you helped? What was the impact? Talk about maybe specific things of your knowledge, like your knowledge for that specific services and how you're able to leverage that skill to help someone. When you do that, people are locked in. They are locked into your podcast. They are not going away. They are listening to the end, because once they get to the end, they're going to be like, I've got to call this business, because this lady who was on the interview, she was really smart. She knew everything. She knew this and that and the other, right? You have to do that, because if you just go straight to the meat and potatoes of your business, like all in one, you leave the host with no way to ask you questions. And then when they do ask you questions, it's going to be repetitive questions. It's going to be the same question over and over again. And it's going to feel like you're not sharing the information because you rushed all of the information in the beginning. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so when you start getting interviews where the host is asking you repetitive questions, or maybe appear to be, questions that are, the same but different, if you know what I mean, is you're gonna feel like, why am I answering the same question? And then you're gonna find yourself saying stuff like, as I mentioned earlier, or as I said earlier. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you start getting that, it means that you said too much too fast. Okay, you have to divvy that information out along the interview time, and then engage with the host while you're talking about it, so that the host can facilitate more questions and it becomes more of a conversation, rather than someone on one side asking you a question and then you just answering. It's just this one-sided thing, like Atari. You just wait for the ball to go to the other side. You know what I'm saying? You got to engage with the host just like you engage with anybody else who is doing an interview. And so you want to do that, okay? So, all right. Now, here's the other flip side of that, right? You want to elaborate based on your knowledge, right? If I get that out, but you do not brag. There's a difference between bragging about your business and elaborating on a point. They already know you do the business. You want to focus on elaboration of your knowledge so that your business stands out. Your business is going to stand out because you created the business. It's your concept, right? You don't need to brag on what the business itself is doing. You need to talk about your final points so that the person feels like, I can spend my money with this organization because this person knows what they're talking about. You hear that all the time. I don't want this person because they don't know what they're talking about, but I want her because she knows what she's talking about. That's what makes your business great. This is what people pay for. This is why they listen to your podcast, because they want to hear what you got to say. They want to know what expertise you're about to share in any given moment. And that is what's going to make your business stand out. Does that make sense, everybody? Are you guys still out there? Just want to make sure you're cool. Give me a like and a thumbs up. Let me know you're out there. Okay. What else? Awesome. Okay. Now, one of the other things too that I see that I'm going to just touch on real briefly is you want to not make your answers too short. Okay. Thank you for the likes. If you make your answers too short, guess what? They're going to ask more questions. The whole idea of doing an interview is not having the host ask you a barrage of questions. What they want to do is stop you and say, hey, I got like 5 questions to everything you just said because you just gave some really good information. That is what you want. You want that to come out, because the more that you show your expertise, the more smarter you look, the more your business looks like it's on top. Customers will be like, oh, I heard your thing. I'm going to tell you, I've had feedback from My Pacific podcast, and I can tell you that, people who really was engaged in the interviews have come back to tell me about Pacific podcasts, where people were just really in depth with their topic. And then the ones that just went straight to their business and all that kind of stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. They really didn't have that much substance. They didn't get that much listenership. Okay, because I have a way where I can do metrics on the people who listen to my podcast, and I can tell you who listens to it most and who listens to it less. And the ones that have the most listeners are the ones that have really good sentence structure. They actually just elaborate just enough so that host could pull out 5 or 6 questions and really bring that expertise out of you. And then you can really talk about some stuff and it becomes a really great interview. Okay. So that's why I want to touch on that. So I want you to practice on that. Now, with that part right there, I want to touch on 2 little caveats. One is that this is when you can integrate a personal story. So for example, If you get to a specific part of your interview and it relates to something in your past, right? Pick one thing, not 5 or 6 things. Pick one thing out of your past and then tell a personal story about it without y'all getting too much into your business that is not related. Because a lot of times people think, oh, my personal story of being in this situation or being in that situation applies to everything. No, it don't apply to everything. It goes back to tip number 1, aligning yourself with the podcast platform and aligning your presentation with that platform. So find out what that personal story is and then align it to your question or your answer in your interview. Okay, so that's one little thing too that I want to talk about. Another thing, little caveat before we move to the next session is I want you to be confident. This is when you need to be confident in what you're doing. Okay, you got to be confident in what you do for a living. But some people confuse the two and they go, okay, I think I want to be cocky instead of being confident. And I'm going to give you an example. Okay, there are people who feel that being loud, arrogant, forceful, all that kind of stuff talking is supposed to be confident. That's not confident. Think about it. The listener is listening to you. You have no idea who is listening to your podcast. Okay. When they start hearing people getting loud and rowdy and upset, the first thing they're going to think is this person upset? Is this person getting upset with the host? And then sometimes, believe it or not, depending on who's listening, they're going to be offended. They're going to be offended because they're going to be hearing someone get loud and rowdy, like they're trying to be a preacher or whatever. And preachers be loud because that's the persona that they give, but that is not necessary in a podcast interview. You don't need to get upset, loud and rowdy and getting all, trying to be over passionate, because some people, they get like that and they're not being cocky, but they're over passionate. And sometimes you have to dial that back and just say, okay, look, let me just explain what I do without all of this attitude and, cockiness. And it's confusing. It is very confusing. The host doesn't know how to take it. And believe it or not, when they stop asking you questions and leaving it up to you to just keep talking without questions, then you know that you are coming off a little bit too aggressive. Okay, so you got to dial it back and really be more approachable in your interview, because there are a lot of people that feel like, yeah, I got to be this way to get the attention because that's what I do on stage, or that's what I do when I'm at church, or that's what I do when I'm at this other event. I got to get loud. And no, you don't have to get loud to do all of that. Just be yourself and dial it back. Okay. All right. So did anybody had any questions so far? Any questions? Oh, alignment. This has been coming up so much in the last few days. So key. Yep. All right. So we don't have any questions. So if I see some, I will spill it out. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next. Okay. All right. Talking about your business specifically. Okay. When you have that 15 minutes to talk about your business, okay, you want to be as clear and concise as possible. Okay. And let me say it again. You got to be clear and concise. Clear and concise means that you have to do it as if you're doing an elevator pitch. The first thing you want to do is when someone says, tell me about your business, you want to do it in less than 30 seconds, like an elevator pitch, just like you do for any interview that you go on a job. You want to incorporate the who, what, when, why, and how in 30 seconds. Then you can elaborate on the different points, okay? You want to elaborate. Too many of us are going out here talking about the business, and then the first thing they want to do is start talking about some event they're going to be doing, all this kind of stuff. Look, when the question is asked what your business do, state what your business do. You have plenty of time to talk about events that you're holding or network or whatever it is that you're doing outside of that. Get to the meat and potatoes. This is when you get to the meat and potatoes of what your business does. And then you pick that 2 services to focus on, right? And then you talk about that, and that's how you relate it. Now, the second thing I want to say to that is do not repeat the same statement about your business. There are a couple of people who I interviewed over the last couple of years that when we talked about it, they just kept saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm going to tell you what happens in that instance. It tells me you do not know your business. You don't know your business. You don't know your services. You can't tell me how you're going to help me. You don't bring no value. You just only telling me the same thing because you don't know how else to explain it. And that leads me to my other point. Practice your speaking skills. Practice, practice, practice. Go get a course. Do something to practice your speaking skills, because your speaking skills on an interview is critical. It's critical. You cannot get on an interview and not be able to articulate what you do or how you do it or who you do it for. Okay, you have to be that good. Even if you are not a professional speaker, every business owner should go out there and take at least 1 or 2 speaking classes. I had to practice my speaking skills because I had this thing where I kept saying, all the time, and I kept stuttering, and I'm still working on my presentation skills. And if you guys look back at some of my stuff I had last year versus this year, you will see a grave difference, because I had to work on my speaking skills. If I'm going to be a podcast host, I cannot be on the podcast interviewing and I have bad speech. Okay. So when you are repeating the same statement over and over again, and on top of the fact you don't have good speaking skills, right? She said, come visit me at Toastmasters. Yes, I do. You have to do that. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to talk about in terms of your business to give a good interview, please, please, please don't do this. Okay. Please do not give leads to other services in which somebody got to call you to find out. Okay. I'm going to repeat that. Do not give leads to other services you do in which someone has to call you to find out. Now, let me just explain what I mean about that. There are a lot of times I keep seeing posts and people in interviews saying, if you want to know about this so-and-so, give me a call directly in the middle of the interview. That is not the time to talk about that, because here's the thing. People have spent their time, have reserved their time, you might as well say, to sit and listen to your interview. They did not come to listen to you sell to them. They did not. They came to listen to your interview because they want to know more about you. And maybe in the future, when they connect with you, then you could talk about what you want to sell. But too many times we're getting people, not just on podcasts, but on Facebook as well. And I had to delete a couple of them today. If you're going to provide a service, say what the service is. If you want to charge a fee, say what the fee is. Don't lead people to feel like they just got to call you to find out what this special you got going on. If you got listeners listening right then and there, you need to say what it is. Don't give people the lead. You're going to find that, I've been on this podcast and nobody called me. They didn't call you because you were selling to them instead of sharing information to them. Okay, you have to share what you do and show the value in your service before someone can trust to buy you. And that's anywhere. You can go to the store right now and I guarantee you will be trying to decide between a Big Mac and some fries or both. And even then, you're still looking at the what's the name of that sandwich? The Quarter Pounder, and making a decision. Okay. So when you're making decisions like that, think about the listeners making decisions about your business. Think about them listening to your interview and trying to get something out of it so that they feel like you gave them a valuable thing. And now they want to talk to you. But when you give leads on your business, before you get a chance or the host get a chance to ask you that, you lose your credibility. Because now it just seems like you could just say, yeah, I have a special. It just seems like you're just there just to sell and not really bring value. Okay. And no one's really going to call you because you're selling them before they get the chance to know who you are. Okay. So that I want to talk about that. Okay. Now, this is the last piece that we're going to talk about. is what do you do after the podcast interview is over? Okay. The first don't you don't want to do is you do not want to leave the interview without thanking the host for allowing them to have you on their platform. Okay. That is the number one thing, because podcasting is a very, very, I wouldn't say hard, but it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get clients. It's a lot of work to broadcast. It's a lot of work to promote. It's a lot of work to keep it going. It's a lot of work, period. The last thing you want to do is end your interview and don't even say thank you, because when you don't do this, it makes the host feel like, man, this person didn't even thank me for bringing them on my platform. And, because they're thanking you in the beginning of the thing, because they start out, hey, so-and-so, thank you for being on the podcast today. And then you leave and you don't even say thank you for being on. I mean, it's a wrong thing to do. That's just me. And it doesn't leave the host feeling like you were appreciative of being on their platform. So you want to make sure that you say thank you either in the beginning and also say thank you at the end. Okay, so you definitely want to do that. The last thing you want to do is you want to leave with a ending summary statement about everything that you liked about the podcast platform. Particularly will be nice if you summarized pretty much 3 points or give 3 pieces of advice. That's why people always, when they on my podcast, the thing I ask the most is, can you give the listeners 3 pieces of advice that you want to leave them with? Because I want people to remember you. I want them to remember your expertise. I want them to remember what you do for a living, not selling anything, but just letting them know what knowledge do you have that will bring value to them, so that when they listen to you, they're going to go to your website, they're going to check you out, they're going to follow you, they're going to think about buying your services, and that is a potential customer for you. Okay. That is a potential customer for you. And that's really all is. So if you leave an ending statement, if you leave something that says how you like the interview, how you appreciate the host, and that you're looking for anyone who would like to collaborate with you, that shows that you want a relationship with other businesses. Hence, what did I say? You're attracting the audience. You are attracting the audience. And that's really what you are trying to do. So those are my intertwined tips for presenting your business in a podcast interview or any interview. And I'm going to tell you, this works if you're trying to find another job. This works anywhere you are trying to present your business, is getting that elevator pitch. And then I'm going to add one more. Follow up with the podcast host to see if you're able to connect with their network. Follow up. I got tons of people I could follow up who have collaborated with me after the podcast, who have built relationships with me. I got Judith on here. I got Chris on here. I got Leroy, who I worked for a couple of years. I got Women Offering Wealth. I got, all these folks who've been on my podcast that I follow up with, who have helped me along the way. Here it is, 3 years going on strong. That's what it's all about. That's the relationship you build when you're a podcast host. And if you are going out there to become a host yourself, right? These are the tips that you want as well for your attendees, for those who are on your platform. And everything that I said about people who want to be on a platform applies to you. If you are looking to be a host, you want people who align with your business. That's the first thing. You want them to align with your business. You don't want just any Joe Schmo on your podcast platform. Some people you just have to tell no. How much work are you willing to do to promote these people on your platform? Because everything is not free. You want to make sure that you get people who know how to speak well, who represent themselves well, because when they are represented well, your podcast platform is represented well. Okay. You also want to make sure that you yourself have good speaking skills, right? And you also want to have good questions come out of the conversation of your podcast, because you want substance. You want to be able to, in any of your podcast platform, be able to pull out valuable information that people can use right then and there. And that's what you want. If you want to be a podcast platform host or whatever, and maybe I should do one that talks about how can you create a podcast with hardly any money. And I'm gonna tell you, it is so easy to do that. The question is, do you have the time? Do you want the time? Is this really what you want? There's so many different podcasts out there. There's so many different ways that you can create a podcast platform. And it doesn't really cost a lot of money to do so. It really, really doesn't. Okay. I can guarantee you, even this thing that I'm doing right now with the live stream, it's free. Okay. I'm not paying anything for this because I love to use the technology that's out there, and I want to encourage you guys to do that. It's no secret. I can tell you what I'm using right now. She said, yes, it's about time. Yes. What I use to do this specific background is OBS, which is a free outsource program that I talked about in my Get the Job workshop, not the Get the Job workshop, in the 21st century. If you haven't seen the 21st century, how to start and grow your business, 1, 2, and 3, go back and watch that. OBS is a platform where you can get online, and it has the YouTube integration. It has the Facebook integration that you see here. I have learned how to green screen my room and put this background behind me and put this text you see down here below right there, and boom, I am Facebook Live right here. Okay, OBS program. It is free. Go out there and get it. Go out there and get OBS. Okay, OBS. That's what I'm putting in the chat window. OBS. It's an open source program. I'll type that right there. It is free. Now, I don't know yet how to add people to my thing. I don't think it has a capability because I'm doing it with my computer, but I know with your phone that you can bring people into your live feed. Now, I think they're going to be doing this. I think they're going to be adding more to OBS. But what I like about this is that with OBS, you can practice. And this is the reason why I brought the OBS up. When you're doing your podcast platform, okay, and because you might decide you want to do video or you want to do audio, OBS is a great platform for you to self-record yourself for your audio, to listen to yourself when you're talking to people and interviewing people on your podcast platform, okay? It's a great way to get out of your comfort zone of not being scared of the video, because I'm still trying to get over my little problems with the video. And everything. So, but I'm working through it, and I'm learning how to leverage the video to do what I do. So I want you guys to go out and get OBS, and I want you to practice your speaking skills, practice your interview voice, practice your interview style, practice, how you deliver your messages and how you're able to engage the people who you're talking to, because you can't see your listeners. You don't know who's on the other end listening to you. And you also have to start thinking about how you're going to even reach your target. Like, what kind of marketing are you going to do? So those are all the things that you can start to do. So if you're interested in doing a podcast platform, maybe I'll come back next month and talk about how you create a podcast platform. For those who are interested in doing that, I don't mind doing it. I'm not scared of competition because I know what I do is unique and people are out there doing it. So I want people to do it too. I said, Chris says, is this that I posted correct? Yes. Yeah, I think it is. If not, I would definitely put this in the title up above so that people could do it. But I'm telling you, OBS is a great program. And yeah, I will come back and do another webinar to say, how do you create a podcast platform with little to no money so that you can start getting your podcast off the ground and build your brand for your business, because that seems to be the thing that people are doing, and I don't mind sharing it. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the chat below that you are, and I will set up another one in May to do that. And I hope that all this information is helpful to you guys, that people who watch the playback, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Of course, I hope you guys enjoy the leadership trainings coming up. We have Kitiana Howard coming up soon with Leading in Heels. So please join that webinar. She's going to be talking about women leadership. And then we're going to have Leroy coming back, how to publish your book, how to write and publish your book, which is going to be cool because he's a publisher. Then we're going to turn around and have, what's his name? I think there was another gentleman who said he wanted to do a thing. And then how do you see everyone's questions but mine? Let me see. I didn't see a question. Let me see. How do you see everyone's questions? Let me see. Judith, I see your question. I can actually see it like right now. I can just see all the questions coming up. I see Connie's coming up. I saw some other people, but I didn't see any specific questions that you may have put up there. And I'm looking right now. But if I happen to see your questions pop up after this, I will definitely answer them. And of course, you guys know you can catch me here anytime on Facebook. And I hope this was very helpful to you. So thank you guys for joining me. Give yourself an applause for coming out and everything. So thank you guys so much for joining the webinar. And I'm going to disconnect now. So so happy I got this done. It's really exciting. I love sharing. You know I do. I love you all. Love you.